That's just unreal. Unreal. We were cruising right along, and all of a sudden, we lost our signal. Ah, it makes you want to spit sideways. So we will not be deterred. We're coming right back at you. If we got to do it in two parts, we'll do it in two parts. But nonetheless, where were we? I think we're somewhere right about here on Big Band Music Night on the George Espinlov Show. Oh, I hate when that happens. All of a sudden, all the lights are glittering and flashing and going back and forth and up and down the way they're supposed to. And then you look, and all of a sudden, that little circle thing starts going around and around and around and around. And all of a sudden, you look over on the corner, and it says reconnecting, and it can't reconnect. I know a lot of folks have been having problems lately because there's just so many of us on, and there's a lot of people in all the different time zones that were on the internet, and I know that it's a burden, and the companies that supply us with internet service are having a hard time keeping up with it. But nonetheless, we are back. Let's call this part two of Big Band Music Night here on the George Espinlov Show. My, oh, my, oh, my. We were just cruising right along. You know what I'm saying? It's not funny, gang. It's not funny, but everything is funny to you, I guess. Anyhow, here's what I want you to do. If you missed the early part of part one, this is the early part of part two. All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to email me, georgece@comcast.net, georgece@comcast.net. I want you to tell me where you're listening from, whether it's down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, because we are in so many different foreign countries, and let me know where you are listening from. Now, we get reports, Spain, UK, so on and so forth, but tell me specifically, I don't want your address, but just tell me where at in that particular country are you listening to the George Espinlov Show from. And then along with that, tell me if you're doing things different or you're discovering different things now that we are kind of isolated from one another and we're spending more and more time on the internet. I mentioned in part one before we were so rudely interrupted by being disconnected. I mentioned that there are lots of places that I'm discovering you can go that I never took the time to really go to before. You can take virtual tours of cathedrals, museums, national parks. You can take virtual tours of places all around this world. Obviously, we're not traveling around the world as we did prior to this thing that we're facing. And many of us could never go to some of those places. This is the time to explore what is out there and the beauty of it all. Perhaps you're writing a book. Perhaps you're writing about your family history. Perhaps you're writing about the ordeal that you're going through with this coronavirus. But whatever you're doing, is it something different that you didn't have time to do before? But now that you have time, you can explore and go into other facets and find out just how big and how great this planet is. Perhaps you are looking at things in outer space through NASA and so on and so forth. But please let me know. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. I'm interested in finding out what people are doing now that they're spending more time online. And with our big band music tonight, let me know. Do you like the big band music? Or is it, yuck? But one way or another, let me know. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net.
Hello, everyone. This is Claudio Relsano. Tune into my show, The Claudio Relsano Show, where I will be interviewing sports legends of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, as well as talking sports with some old friends. You can hear us on ClaudioRelsano.com. That's ClaudioReilsono.com. And now at 4 p.m. on Fridays and 9 a.m. on Mondays at the George Espenlaub Show on Facebook.
Dum dum dum. Espinal, don't start singing. Besides, here on the East Coast, people are starting to settle down for the night. You don't want to cause them to have a nightmare. Hey, if you if you just tuned in, you're listening to part two because just as we got going into part one, we had an internet disconnect. But it came back up. We're in here for part two, so this is what we're going to have to do tomorrow. Although this goes to multiple places, and it will. It goes to Spotify and iHeartRadio, iTunes, blah, blah, blah. It goes all over the place. But what we'll do tomorrow is we'll get these two different parts of the audio, and we'll have to put it back together again, and we'll then we'll have a whole thing for future use. But this is part two. We won't be denied. And this is big band music tonight here on the George Espinal Show. listening to the George Espinlab Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm in a place called Our World. This is part 2, because we were rudely interrupted by a internet disconnect episode. So this is part 2 of big band music here on the George Espinlab Show. We're doing something different. We never played big band music before, as far as I know. And I don't know a whole lot. I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago, much less what I did 5 years ago. But I don't think we have played. If we have, it's only been 1 or 2. But tonight is big band music night here on the George Espinlab Show, and I thank you for tuning in. As I mentioned, this is part 2, about 25 or 30 minutes into our show. We had a disconnect. We're back. We've been back for about 21 minutes now, so we're crossing our fingers. Every now and then, I guess the internet company told me that you get a spike. It's almost like a power surge, but it's another type of surge, and it just blinks it out for a minute, sometimes longer. So we have to put up with that. Hopefully it won't happen again tonight. It hasn't happened for a couple days, and tonight it got us. We're running an experiment. I'm running an experiment. I want to know what you're doing differently now that you are home more, what you're doing differently on the internet, other than scrolling through Facebook and Instagram, Twitter. What are you doing differently? I have found out through other people that there are multiple places that you can go. You can take a virtual tour of cathedrals, museums, national parks. Perhaps you're writing. Perhaps you are writing a book that you've been working on and just didn't have enough time. And now you're really pounding it down. Perhaps you're writing about your family history. That's a good thing. Everyone needs to write about their family history. Maybe you're getting some educational things taken care of that you didn't have the time to do before, but I'm curious. Maybe you are visiting NASA and going into outer space. That's cool. That's interesting. And studying about that, or looking at the wonders of the heavens and so on and so forth. But whatever you're doing, let me know. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. And let me know. Let me know where you're coming from. Let me know if you like our big band music or it's yuck. And let me know what you're doing differently online now that you have more time to be there, and some of the places that you're visiting online. I think that would be quite interesting. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net.
The Swinging 60s.
The Swinging 60s.
The Swinging 60s. The Swinging 60s. The Swinging 60s Show with Harry Burt on Spreaker.com.
Hey, this is Harry over here in Ireland. Welcome you to the Swinging 60s Show. Sunday evenings, 2000 hours GMT. I will play Beatles, Kinks, Beach Boys, Carpenters, Elvery Brothers, lots of classic oldies. We have quizzes. We have all things going on here. So Google the Swinging 60s Show. Be heard. Come into the chat room.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans and countrymen, I think we're going to call it a night. I apologize that we had to do this show tonight in 2 parts, but that's what happens when you go live. You just never know. You get the wrinkles, the blurps, the blips, the bleeps, and all those other things that could take place and sometimes do when you go live. I love live radio. I've always loved live radio. And sometimes it'll make you look like a goof, but other times, stop it. Y'all know I'm goofy anyhow. Sometimes it'll make you look like a goof, but for the most part, it's a lot of fun when you do live because you got to stay on your toes. If you're knocked down, you got to get back up. If you fall down, you got to land on your feet. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, I think we made it through. We'll try to patch up our boo-boos. And shame on that disconnect internet thing. How dare it happen like that? But when you hear that music, it's time for us to get out of here. I enjoyed this tonight, other than the part that cut us in two. But thank you for taking the time to tune in. Thank you for those that are going to be listening later. I'll thank you in advance. Thank you for all of your support. Remember, send me that email, georgece@comcast.net. Let me know where you're listening from, and let me know what you're doing different now that you have much more time on the internet than you previously did. Go to those virtual tours and write something, and so on and so forth. georgece@comcast.net. So, wherever you're at, if it's nighttime, I trust that you will have a very pleasant evening. If it's already day, you have a beautiful, beautiful day. Stay safe. Be kind one to another. Love one another. Help one another. We're going to get through this. Guaranteed, we'll get through it. Come out on the other side. The sun will be shining. The birds will be singing. And yep, we'll be all right. Don't forget, don't ever be afraid to tell someone that you love them. It could possibly save a life. So until next time, from me and all the gang here at the Funny Farm, thank you for tuning in. I trust that God will keep you right in the center of his hand. Good night, everybody.